Daniel Hayes was 30 seconds from losing everything. His daughter's eviction notice sat in his pocket, his last $5 clutched in his fist, and the interview that could save them both was happening right now 3 blocks away. But when he saw that woman frozen in the intersection, the truck bearing down on her like death itself, he didn't think about the job or the bills or his daughter's tears. He just ran. What he didn't know was that saving her life would change his forever. "Daddy, are we going to be okay?" Daniel Hayes heard those words in his sleep. They echoed through every dream, every nightmare, every moment his eyes snapped open at 3 a.m, with his heart hammering against his ribs. His daughter Lily had asked him that question exactly 47 times in the past 3 months. Each time he'd smiled and said yes. Each time he'd been lying. The eviction notice on their apartment door gave them 14 days. The balance in his checking account was $4.63. The interview at Donovan Technologies was scheduled for 9 o'clock on a Friday morning in October, and it was the only thing standing between his little girl and a homeless shelter. Daniel's alarm never went off. When his eyes opened, sunlight was already streaming through the cracked window of their studio apartment. Real sunlight. Morning sunlight. The kind that meant he was already late for the most important moment of his entire life. No. He grabbed his phone. 8:42. The interview was in 18 minutes. Donovan Technologies was 40 minutes away by bus. Lily sat up in her small bed across the room, rubbing sleep from her eyes. She was 9 years old with her mother's dark hair and Daniel's gray eyes. Those eyes had seen too much sadness for a child. "Dad, what's wrong?" "Nothing, sweetheart. I'm running late." He was already pulling on the only dress shirt he owned, the one he'd ironed last night, and hung carefully on the bathroom door. His hands shook so badly he missed 2 buttons. "Is it the job interview?" "Yeah, baby, but I'm going to make it, I promise." Another lie, but what else could he say? That he'd failed her again, that the interview he'd prepared for all week, the job that could pay enough to keep their home and put food on the table, and maybe, just maybe, let her have a normal childhood, was slipping away because he was too exhausted to wake up on time. He grabbed his briefcase, the leather cracked and worn from years of use. Inside was his resume printed on paper he'd bought with quarters from the laundromat, and a folder of references from temp jobs and warehouse gigs that barely kept them alive. "I love you, Lily. Mrs. Chen from downstairs will check on you before school, okay?" "I love you too, Daddy." Her voice was small. "I hope you get the job." "Me too, baby. Me too." The door closed behind him and Daniel ran. The bus stop was 3 blocks away. He checked his phone as his dress shoes slapped against the pavement. 8:46. If the bus came in the next 2 minutes, if traffic was light, if the universe decided to give him just one break, he might make it by 9:15, 20 minutes late. Maybe they'd still see him, maybe. 8:48, no bus. 8:50, still nothing. 8:53, a woman waiting at the stop shook her head. Friday morning service is terrible. Sometimes it doesn't come for half an hour. Daniel felt something crack inside his chest, not his ribs. Something deeper, the last fragile piece of hope he'd been clutching for months. He looked at the skyline. Donovan Technologies was on the other side of the Chicago River, a gleaming tower of glass and steel that represented everything he wasn't. Success, security, stability. From where he stood, he could see it glittering in the morning sun like a castle in a fairy tale, impossible and perfect and completely out of reach. He started running. His briefcase banged against his leg. His shirt was already soaked with sweat despite the October cold. His lungs burned. He hadn't run like this since high school, back when life was simple, and his biggest worry was passing algebra. Back before Sarah got sick, before the medical bills, before the funeral, before he became a single dad, trying to hold together a life that kept falling apart in his hands. The bridge stretched ahead of him. His phone said 8:58. 2 minutes. He was still 15 blocks away. It was impossible. But he kept running because what else could he do? Go home and tell Lily they'd be sleeping in his car next week. Tell her Daddy couldn't keep his promises. He was halfway across the bridge when he heard the scream. It cut through the morning air like glass breaking. High and sharp and terrified, Daniel's head snapped to the right. The intersection below the bridge was clogged with morning traffic. Cars honked, people shouted, and in the middle of it all, frozen in the crosswalk like a deer in headlights, stood a woman in a gray suit. She wasn't looking at the traffic light, she was looking at her phone. Her face was pale, her eyes wide, and she wasn't moving. The delivery truck came around the corner too fast. Daniel saw it happen in slow motion. The truck's brakes screamed. The driver's face contorted in horror. The woman looked up at the last second, her phone falling from her hands, and Daniel knew with absolute certainty that she was about to die. His briefcase hit the ground. He didn't think. Thinking was for people who had time, and time had just run out. His legs carried him down the bridge stairs, his dress shoes sliding on the concrete, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The truck was 20 feet away. 15, 10. Daniel crashed into her like a linebacker. They hit the pavement hard. His ribs exploded with pain as they rolled across the asphalt away from the truck's path. The vehicle roared past them so close, Daniel felt the wind from it tear at his clothes. Brakes shrieked. Metal crunched. Someone screamed. Then silence. Daniel lay on the cold street, his chest on fire, his hands bleeding from the road rash. Above him, the October sky was impossibly blue. He'd saved her. The woman was alive. He could feel her breathing beneath him, could hear her gasping for air, and his interview was at 9 o'clock. He'd missed it. He'd missed his only chance. He'd lost everything. The woman stirred beneath him. Are you okay? Daniel pushed himself up, wincing as pain lanced through his side. His shirt was torn. His pants were ripped at the knee. Blood dripped from his palms onto the pavement. I'm fine, he said. It came out as a wheeze. Are you hurt? She sat up slowly, her gray suit now smudged with dirt and oil. She was maybe 40, with dark hair pulled back in a bun that had come half undone. Her eyes were brown and sharp and currently filled with shock. I think I'm okay. You saved my life. Just glad you're all right. Daniel tried to stand and nearly fell. His ribs screamed. Something was definitely broken. I need to go. I had an interview. Wait, don't move. You're hurt. She grabbed his arm. Her grip was surprisingly strong. Someone call an ambulance. No. Daniel pulled away, panic rising in his throat. No ambulance. I can't afford it. I'm fine. You're bleeding. Your ribs. I said I'm fine, but he wasn't fine. His hands shook as he looked around for his briefcase. Where was it? Where had he dropped it? The interview was... He checked his phone. 9:04. It was over. Done. He'd sacrificed his daughter's future to save a stranger. Here. Someone handed him his briefcase. The leather was scuffed but intact. Daniel took it with bloody hands and started limping back toward the bridge. Each step sent fire through his side. He needed to get home, needed to figure out what to do next, how to tell Lily they'd lost. Wait. Please wait. The woman had stood up. She was following him, her heels clicking on the pavement. Daniel kept walking. He couldn't face her gratitude right now, couldn't handle her thanks when all he felt was the crushing weight of failure. Sir, please, I need to know your name. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. You saved my life, and I missed my interview. The words came out bitter. Daniel stopped walking and turned to face her. Do you know what it's like to have one shot, one chance to fix everything that's wrong in your life? I had that shot this morning, 9 o'clock at Donovan Technologies, but I missed it because I stopped to pull you out of traffic. So I'm glad you're alive, I really am, but forgive me if I'm not in the mood to chat. Her face changed. Something shifted in her eyes. Donovan Technologies. Yeah, not that it matters now. What's your name? Daniel Hayes. Look, I really need to... You're Daniel Hayes. Her voice had gone strange, quiet. You had a 9 o'clock interview for the logistics coordinator position. Daniel stared at her. How did she know that? Who are you? The woman straightened her suit jacket. Her hand was shaking slightly as she extended it toward him. Clara Donovan. I'm the CEO of Donovan Technologies. The world tilted. Daniel just looked at her, his blood-stained hand hanging at his side, his mind unable to process what she'd just said. The woman he'd saved. The woman who'd been staring at her phone in the middle of traffic. The woman whose life he'd traded for his future. She was Clara Donovan. I'm the person you were supposed to interview with this morning. Clara's voice was steady now, professional, but her eyes were still wide with shock. And I'm the person you just saved. Mr. Hayes, I think we need to talk. Police sirens wailed in the distance. A crowd had gathered on the sidewalk. Someone was filming with their phone. Daniel felt dizzy. His ribs hurt. His hands were bleeding. And Clara Donovan, the CEO of the company that could save his life, was staring at him like he'd just performed a miracle. I need to sit down, Daniel said. There's a coffee shop around the corner. Can you walk? He nodded. They walked in silence, Clara supporting his elbow when he stumbled. The cafe was small and warm and mostly empty. She guided him to a booth in the back and ordered 2 coffees without asking what he wanted. Daniel sat with his head in his hands, trying to breathe around the pain in his ribs. This couldn't be happening. This was too strange, too convenient, too much like some story people told themselves to believe the world was fair. But the world wasn't fair. The world was cruel and random, and it took away everyone you loved and left you scrambling to survive. Clara returned with the coffee and a first aid kit the barista had given her. She sat across from him and started pulling out bandages. "Let me see your hands. I can do it. Mr. Hayes, you just threw yourself in front of a truck to save my life. The least I can do is put band-aids on your hands. Now let me see them." Daniel extended his palms. The road rash was ugly, embedded with bits of gravel and dirt. Clara worked in silence, cleaning the wounds with antiseptic wipes that stung like fire. Her hands were gentle, precise, the hands of someone used to fixing problems. "Why were you looking at your phone?" Daniel asked quietly, in the middle of an intersection. Clara paused. "My daughter texted me. She was upset about something at school. I was trying to respond and I didn't see the light change. Stupid, careless, the kind of mistake that gets people killed. But it didn't, because of you." She finished bandaging his left hand and moved to the right. "You didn't hesitate, you just ran. Why? I don't know, instinct, I guess. I saw someone in trouble and I moved. Most people freeze, or they assume someone else will help. You dropped everything and ran toward danger." Clara secured the last bandage and looked up at him. "That tells me something about who you are, Mr. Hayes. It tells you I'm bad at self-preservation. It tells me you're the kind of person who does what's right, even when it costs you everything." She folded her hands on the table. "Tell me about yourself. Not the resume version, the real version." Daniel laughed and it hurt his ribs. "You want the real version? Okay, I'm 33 years old. I'm a widower. My wife Sarah died 2 years ago from cancer. Medical bills wiped out our savings. I have a 9-year-old daughter named Lily, who's the only good thing in my life. We're being evicted in 2 weeks because I can't make rent working temp jobs and warehouse gigs. That interview this morning was my last shot at a real job that could keep us off the street. But I missed it because I saved your life. So here I am bleeding and broke and watching my daughter's future disappear. That's the real version." The words hung in the air between them. Daniel waited for the pity, the sympathy, the awkward condolences. But Clara just nodded. "My husband left when Sophie was 2, she said. Said he didn't sign up to be married to someone who worked 80-hour weeks. So I raised her alone while building a company from the ground up. I know what it's like to choose between your child's needs and your career. I know what it's like to feel like you're failing at both." Daniel looked at her, really looked, and saw something in her eyes he recognized. The exhaustion, the determination, the fierce love for a child that made you do impossible things. "How old is Sophie now?" he asked. 8. She's smart and stubborn, and she thinks I work too much. Clara smiled, but it was sad. "She's right. Lily thinks I don't work enough. She's right too." They sat in silence, 2 single parents, on opposite ends of the economic spectrum, bound together by bad luck and split-second decisions. "Mr. Hayes," Clara said finally, "you were supposed to interview with my head of logistics this morning, but I'm going to make you an offer right now. Come to my office, meet with me and my team. Show me what you can do." Daniel shook his head. "I appreciate it, really, but I look like I got hit by a truck. I'm bleeding, my shirt is torn, I can barely breathe. This isn't how job interviews work." "You're right. This isn't how they usually work. But you ran across a bridge and threw yourself in front of a truck to save someone you'd never met. You sacrificed your one chance at stability for a stranger. That tells me more than any resume ever could." Clara stood up. "My car is outside. Come with me." "Mrs. Donovan," Clara, "and I'm not asking as a favor. I'm asking because I need people like you in my company. People who don't freeze when things go wrong. People who move toward problems instead of away from them." She held out her hand. "Come on, Daniel. Let's go see what you're really made of." Daniel looked at her hand. This was insane. He was injured, disheveled, completely unprepared. Every logical part of his brain said to go home, to regroup, to try again another day. But logic hadn't kept him and Lily alive this long. Desperate courage had. He took her hand and stood up. The ride to Donovan Technologies took 15 minutes. Clara drove a sleek black sedan that probably cost more than Daniel had earned in the past 5 years. He sat in the passenger seat, trying not to bleed on the leather, watching the city slide past the window. "Tell me about the position," he said. What exactly does a logistics coordinator do? You manage supply chains, track shipments, coordinate with vendors, make sure products get from point A to point B on time and under budget. It's detail-oriented work, high pressure, lots of problem solving. Clara glanced at him. Think you can handle it? I've been coordinating the logistics of single parenthood for 2 years, getting a first grader to school on time while working 3 jobs and managing medical bill payment plans taught me more about organization than any college course ever could. You didn't go to college, couldn't afford it, went straight to work after high school, bounced around different jobs, was finally getting stable when Sarah got sick. Daniel looked out the window. After she died, I couldn't hold down regular employment. Grief makes you unreliable, turns out. Bosses don't like it when you break down crying in the break room. How are you now with the grief? Some days are better than others, but Lily needs me functional, so I'm functional. You do what you have to do. Clara nodded. Yes, you do. The Donovan Technologies building loomed ahead, all glass and steel and impossible dreams. Clara pulled into a private parking garage and led Daniel through a side entrance that avoided the main lobby. They took an elevator to the 15th floor. Neither of them spoke. The executive offices were pristine, polished wood, modern art, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Daniel felt like he'd stepped into a different universe. His torn, bloody clothes stood out like a wound. Clara. A woman in a sharp blazer appeared from a conference room. Oh my God, what happened? Are you all right? I'm fine, Michelle. There was an incident this morning. This is Daniel Hayes. He's here for an interview. Michelle's eyes widened as she took in Daniel's appearance. An interview, Clara, I know what he looks like. Clear the conference room. I want the senior logistics team assembled in 20 minutes. But 20 minutes, Michelle. The woman disappeared. Clara turned to Daniel. Do you need a minute? There's a bathroom down the hall if you want to clean up. Daniel looked down at himself. His shirt was torn at the shoulder. His pants were ripped at both knees. His hands were bandaged but still oozing blood in places. He looked like a disaster. This is a mistake, he said quietly. I can't walk into an interview like this. Your team is going to think you've lost your mind. My team is going to see someone who saved my life this morning and kept standing when most people would have collapsed. They're going to see courage and resilience and grace under pressure. Clara's voice was firm. But if you want to leave Daniel, I won't stop you. The choice is yours. Daniel thought about Lily, about her small voice asking if they were going to be okay, about the eviction notice and the empty bank account and the crushing weight of failure he'd carried for 2 years. What do I need to do? He asked. Clara smiled. It was real this time. Tell the truth. Show them who you are. Let me worry about the rest. The conference room had 8 people in it. 4 men, 4 women, all dressed in business attire that probably cost more than Daniel's rent. They stared at him as he entered, their expressions ranging from confusion to concern to barely concealed disdain. Clara sat at the head of the table. Daniel sat beside her, acutely aware of how out of place he looked. A middle-aged man with silver hair leaned forward. Clara, perhaps we should reschedule this interview. Mr. Hayes appears to be injured. Mr. Hayes saved my life this morning, Gerald. I was nearly hit by a truck and he pulled me out of the way at considerable personal cost. So yes, he's injured. He's also here. Let's proceed. The room fell silent. A younger woman with red hair spoke up. Mr. Hayes, your resume shows a lot of short-term positions. Can you explain the gaps in employment? Daniel took a breath. My wife died 2 years ago. I became a single parent overnight. For a while, I couldn't hold down regular work because I was drowning in grief and trying to keep my daughter alive. I took temp jobs, warehouse shifts, anything that would pay bills without requiring long-term commitment. It's not impressive, but it's honest. The woman made a note. Another man spoke, his tone skeptical. The logistics coordinator position requires managing multiple vendors and tracking complex supply chains. What experience do you have with that level of coordination? I've spent 2 years coordinating childcare school schedules, medical appointments, bill payment plans, food stamps, and temp job shifts while keeping a 9-year-old fed, clothed, and emotionally stable. I've negotiated with landlords, debt collectors, and elementary school administrators. I've learned to solve problems with no budget and no backup plan. Daniel met the man's eyes. I know that's not traditional experience, but if you're asking whether I can manage multiple moving parts under pressure while keeping everything from falling apart, the answer is yes. I've been doing it every day for 2 years. "That's not the same as managing a corporate supply chain," the man said. "You're right, it's harder, because when I fail at my job, my daughter goes hungry. When your supply chain fails, you lose money. Both matter, but only one keeps me up at night." Clara was watching him with an expression Daniel couldn't read. The red-haired woman asked another question, then another. They grilled him on logistics software he'd never used, industry standards. He'd never heard of processes he couldn't possibly know. Daniel answered what he could. When he didn't know something, he said so. When they pressed him on technical knowledge, he redirected to problem-solving skills. He was honest about his limitations and clear about his strengths. And then Gerald, the silver-haired man, asked the question that made the room go still. "Mr. Hayes, why should we give you this job? You have no college degree, no relevant experience, and no professional references in this industry. What makes you think you belong here?" Daniel looked at Clara. She gave him the smallest nod. "I don't belong here," Daniel said quietly. "I didn't go to the right schools. I don't have the right credentials. I can't network at country clubs or charm clients over expensive dinners. Everything about my background says I shouldn't be sitting in this room." He paused, feeling the weight of every failure, every setback, every door that had closed in his face. "But I'm here anyway. I'm here because I ran across a bridge this morning even though I knew I'd be late. I'm here because I saw someone in danger and I didn't think about the cost. I'm here because when life knocked me down, I got back up. Not because I'm strong or special or gifted, but because I have a daughter who depends on me, and failure isn't an option." Daniel stood up, wincing as his ribs protested. "You asked why you should give me this job. Here's why. Because none of you need it like I do, and none of you will work harder once you have it. Because I've learned to do more with less than any of you can imagine. Because I've been to the bottom and I know what it takes to climb back up. You want someone who won't quit when things get hard, someone who'll solve problems with no resources and no excuses, someone who shows up even when they're bleeding." He gestured to his torn clothes, his bandaged hands. "You're looking at him." The room was dead silent. Daniel picked up his battered briefcase. "Thank you for your time. I'll show myself out." He walked to the door, each step, agony, his pride, the only thing keeping him upright. His hand was on the doorknob when Clara's voice stopped him. "Daniel." He turned. She was standing now, her expression unreadable. "We'll be in touch." He nodded and left. The elevator ride down felt like falling. Daniel leaned against the wall, exhausted, his ribs screaming, his hands throbbing. He'd given everything he had in that room, laid bare his failures and his desperation and his raw, stubborn refusal to quit, and it probably wasn't enough. It was never enough. He walked out of the building into the October afternoon. The sun was still shining, traffic still moved. The world kept turning like nothing had happened, like his life hadn't just balanced on a knife edge for the second time in one day. Daniel's phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen. "Lily got to school okay. She asked if you got the job. What should I tell her? What should he tell her? The truth, that he'd failed again, that they'd be living in the car soon, that all his promises were just lies wrapped in hope." He typed back, "Tell her Daddy did his best." It was all he had left. Daniel limped to the bus stop and sat down on the bench, his briefcase across his lap, his body broken and his spirit barely holding together. The eviction notice was still in his pocket. The bills were still unpaid. Nothing had changed, except now he had fresh wounds to add to all the old ones. But he'd saved a life today. That had to count for something. Even if it cost him everything, at least Clara Donovan was alive. At least someone's daughter still had her mother. The bus came. Daniel climbed on, paid his fare with coins that left him with less than $4 to his name, and rode toward home. Toward Lily. Toward whatever came next. He didn't know that in Clara Donovan's office, 15 floors above the street, a CEO was making a decision that would change everything. He didn't know that his phone would buzz in exactly 4 hours and 17 minutes with an email that would make him cry in the middle of their small apartment while Lily hugged him tight. All he knew, sitting on that bus with his torn clothes and his broken ribs and his bandaged hands, was that he'd done the right thing, twice, and maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The bus jolted over a pothole and Daniel winced, gripping the seat in front of him. Every breath felt like knives. He needed to get home, take some ibuprofen, and figure out how to explain to Lily that sometimes doing the right thing meant losing everything else. His phone sat silent in his pocket. No calls, no emails, just the weight of another failure pressing down on his chest harder than the broken ribs. Mrs. Chen was waiting in the hallway when he got home, her face creased with worry. She took one look at him and gasped. "Daniel, what happened to you?" "I'm okay, just had a rough morning." "You're bleeding, your shirt." "I know, I just need to rest." "Is Lily still at school?" "Daniel, you need a doctor." "I need a job." The words came out harsher than he intended. I'm sorry, Mrs. Chen. Thank you for checking on her this morning." The old woman's eyes softened. "Did you get it? The job?" Daniel shook his head and unlocked his apartment door. Mrs. Chen didn't follow, just watched him with that same pitying expression he'd seen on everyone's faces since Sarah died. He closed the door and leaned against it, finally alone. The apartment was exactly as he'd left it. Lily's breakfast dishes in the sink, her school books stacked neatly on the table, the eviction notice still taped to the door, its 14-day deadline screaming at him in bold red letters. Daniel sat on the edge of his bed and pulled out his phone. Maybe he could find another warehouse shift. Maybe something would come through on one of the job sites he'd been checking obsessively. Maybe his phone buzzed. Email notification, probably spam or another bill collector. Daniel almost didn't look, but habit made him tap the screen. The sender was Donovan Technologies. His heart stopped. Daniel's hand shook so badly, he almost dropped the phone. He stared at the subject line, employment offer, Daniel Hayes. The words blurred. He blinked hard, trying to focus, trying to breathe through the pain in his ribs and the sudden tight feeling in his throat. He opened the email. "Dear Mr. Hayes, on behalf of Donovan Technologies, I am pleased to extend an offer of employment for the position of logistics coordinator. Your start date will be Monday, October 14th. Salary details and benefits package are attached. Welcome to the team. We look forward to working with you. Regards, Clara Donovan, CEO." Daniel read it 3 times, then 4. The words didn't change. They stayed there, real and solid and impossible. He'd gotten the job. He'd walked into that interview bleeding and broken and desperate, and somehow, impossibly, he'd gotten the job. The salary in the attachment made his vision swim. It was more than he'd made in the past year combined. The benefits included health insurance, dental, vision, things he hadn't had since Sarah was alive. Daniel sat on his bed and cried, not the silent tears he'd learned to hide from Lily, but deep shaking sobs that tore through his chest and made his ribs scream. He cried for the fear, for the months of terror, for every night he'd lain awake wondering how to keep his daughter safe. He cried for Sarah, who would never see this moment. And he cried because for the first time in 2 years, he could breathe. When Lily came home from school 3 hours later, she found her father standing in the kitchen making spaghetti. Real spaghetti with meat sauce, not the dollar store pasta with ketchup they'd been eating for weeks. "Daddy, what's going on?" Daniel turned around. He'd cleaned up, changed clothes, taken enough ibuprofen to dull the pain, but he couldn't hide the smile on his face. "Come here, baby." Lily dropped her backpack and ran to him. He picked her up despite his ribs protesting, holding her tight. "I got the job," he whispered into her hair. "I got the job, Lily. We're going to be okay." She pulled back to look at him, her gray eyes wide. Really, I start Monday. We can stay in our apartment. I can buy you new school clothes. We're going to be okay." Lily threw her arms around his neck and squeezed. "I knew you could do it, Daddy. I knew it." Daniel held his daughter and let himself believe it. Just for a moment, he let himself feel something he hadn't felt in years, hope. Monday morning arrived too fast and too slow. Daniel stood outside Donovan Technologies at 8:45, wearing the same dress shirt he'd worn to the interview, now carefully mended and pressed. His ribs were still sore but manageable. His hands had healed enough to remove the bandages. He walked through the lobby like he belonged there, rode the elevator to the 10th floor where the logistics department lived, reported to HR, filled out paperwork, got his employee badge with a photo that made him look shell-shocked. By 9:30, he was sitting in a gray cubicle with a computer, a phone, and a stack of supply chain reports that might as well have been written in Greek. "Daniel Hayes." Daniel looked up. A man in his 40s stood at the entrance to his cubicle, arms crossed, expression cold. He was fit and polished with the kind of smooth confidence that came from never having struggled. "That's me, Marcus Webb. I'm the director of logistics, your supervisor." Marcus didn't offer his hand. "Clara told me she hired you. Interesting choice. I'll do my best to. Let me be clear about something. I don't care who you saved or what dramatic story got you this job. In this department, you prove yourself with results." "Understood." Daniel stood up. Marcus was taller, but not by much. "Understood." Good. There's a training session in conference room C. In 10 minutes. Don't be late. Marcus walked away without another word. A woman in the neighboring cubicle leaned over. She was young, maybe 25, with kind eyes and a sympathetic smile. Don't take it personally. Marcus is like that with everyone. Good to know. I'm Daniel. Jen. Welcome to logistics hell, she grinned. It's not actually that bad. Marcus is just territorial. He's been angling for a promotion for years, and he sees every new hire as competition. I'm just trying to keep my head down and learn the job. Smart. Come on, I'll show you where conference room C is. We can survive training together. The first week was brutal. Daniel absorbed information like a drowning man gasping for air. Supply chain management, vendor relations, shipping protocols, quality control, inventory tracking systems, software he'd never seen, processes he'd never imagined. He stayed late every night learning the systems, memorizing the procedures. Lily did her homework in the break room while he worked her presence, the only thing that kept him grounded. Clara had approved it when Daniel explained he couldn't afford after-school care yet. Your daughter is welcome here, Clara had said. Family first, Daniel, always. By Friday, Daniel's brain felt like it had been through a blender, but he was starting to understand the rhythm of the work. Track the shipments, coordinate with vendors, solve problems before they became disasters. It was chaos, but it was manageable chaos. Marcus called him into his office at 4:30. Hayes, sit. Daniel sat. Marcus's office was pristine, everything arranged with military precision. Certificates lined the walls, degrees from expensive schools, awards for efficiency and performance. You've completed your first week, Marcus said. Time to see if Clara's faith in you was justified. I'm ready to take on more responsibility. Good, because I have a project for you. Marcus slid a thick folder across the desk. This is our Q4 logistics report. Every quarter we compile data on shipments, costs, delays, vendor performance. It's due to the executive team in 2 weeks. Daniel opened the folder. The pages inside were dense with numbers and charts and spreadsheets that went on for pages. 2 weeks, Daniel said. How long does this usually take? My last coordinator spent 3 weeks on it, but you're special, right? You saved the CEO's life. You can handle anything. Marcus smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Have it on my desk by Wednesday. 4 days, Hayes. Think you can manage? 4 days. For a report that normally took 3 weeks. It was impossible. Marcus knew it was impossible. This was a test designed for failure. Daniel looked at the folder, then at Marcus. He could refuse, explain it couldn't be done. But refusing meant admitting defeat on his first week. It meant proving Marcus right. I'll have it ready, Daniel said. Excellent. I look forward to seeing your work. Marcus turned back to his computer, dismissing him. Daniel took the folder back to his cubicle. Jen glanced over and her face fell. Is that the Q4 report? Yeah. In 4 days, Daniel, that's not fair. That report takes weeks. Then I'd better get started. That night, after Lily fell asleep on the break room couch, Daniel opened his laptop and dove into the data. Thousands of shipments, hundreds of vendors, delivery times, costs, discrepancies, patterns. The numbers swam before his eyes, but he forced himself to focus. He'd survived homelessness and grief and medical bills that would have broken most people. He'd kept a child alive on $5 a day. He'd learned to make miracles out of nothing. This was just another impossible problem, and impossible problems were all he knew how to solve. Daniel worked through the night. When Lily woke up at 6, he was still typing his coffee cold, his eyes burning. Daddy, did you sleep? A little baby, go wash up. We'll grab breakfast before school. You promised you wouldn't work too hard. Daniel saved his document and looked at his daughter. She was worried, her small face tight with the same expression she'd worn when Sarah was sick. I'm okay, Lily. I promise. This is just a big project. Once it's done, things will be easier. You always say that. She was right. He did always say that. But this time he meant it. This time, if he could just survive the next 4 days, if he could just prove himself, maybe things really would get easier. Saturday and Sunday disappeared into spreadsheets and analysis. Daniel took Lily to the park for 2 hours on Sunday afternoon, pushing her on the swings while his mind raced through logistics algorithms and vendor performance metrics. She chattered about school, about her friend Emma, about the books she was reading. Daniel smiled and nodded and tried to be present, but part of him was already back at his computer. Monday night, he found something strange, a pattern in the shipping costs. Certain vendors were charging consistently more than others for the same routes, not by much. 5% here, 8% there, small enough that it might be normal variation, but consistent enough that it set off alarm bells in Daniel's head. He dug deeper, cross-referenced invoices with delivery times, checked vendor contracts against actual charges. The more he looked, the more the pattern emerged. Someone was padding the invoices, thousands of dollars every quarter, tens of thousands over the past year. The overcharges were subtle, spread across multiple vendors disguised as market rate fluctuations, but they were there. Daniel's hands stopped typing. This wasn't just a logistics report anymore, this was fraud. He checked the approval signatures on the inflated invoices. All of them had been reviewed and approved by the same person, Marcus Webb. Tuesday morning, Daniel walked into Marcus's office and placed the completed report on his desk. Marcus looked up surprised. "It's not Wednesday yet." "I finished early. Let me see it." Marcus opened the folder, his eyes scanning the pages. His expression shifted from skepticism to something harder. "This is very thorough. Thank you. Perhaps too thorough." Marcus closed the folder. "You've included some concerning findings." "I included everything I found. The discrepancies in vendor pricing, the pattern of overcharges, the inflated invoices. It's all documented in Section 7. Marcus's jaw tightened. "Hayes, you're new here. You don't understand how vendor relationships work. Sometimes prices fluctuate. It's normal business. Not like this. These overcharges follow a consistent pattern across multiple vendors over 18 months, and they all route through your approval." "Are you accusing me of something?" Daniel met his gaze. "I'm reporting what the data shows. What you do with that information is up to you." Marcus stood up slowly. He was taller than Daniel, broader, and his face had gone cold. "You've made a mistake, Hayes. A serious mistake. I gave you a chance to prove yourself, and instead you come in here making accusations based on data you barely understand." "I understand it fine." "Do you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like a desperate man with no credentials is trying to make himself look important by manufacturing problems that don't exist." Marcus stepped closer. "Let me explain how this is going to work. You're going to take this report and remove Section 7. You're going to stick to basic metrics and stay out of areas you don't comprehend. And you're going to remember that I'm the one who decides if you stay employed here." Daniel's ribs ached. His head pounded. He'd been awake for 3 days finishing this report, and now Marcus was telling him to bury evidence of fraud because it was inconvenient. "No," Daniel said quietly. "Excuse me. I said no, I won't remove it. If there's a legitimate explanation for these discrepancies, then explain them. But I won't pretend I didn't find them." Marcus's face went red. "You're making a very serious enemy, Hayes. Then I guess we're both making choices we'll have to live with." Daniel turned and walked out. His hands were shaking, his heart hammered. He'd just refused a direct order from his supervisor on his second week. He'd essentially accused the director of logistics of fraud. This could end his career before it started. But he'd looked at Lily this morning before school, at her smile, at the trust in her eyes, and he'd known he couldn't bury this, not even to save his job. Because what kind of man would he be if he sacrificed his integrity? The moment it became inconvenient, Daniel walked back to his cubicle, printed a copy of the full report, and sent an email to Clara Donovan's assistant requesting a meeting. The response came back in 5 minutes. "Ms. Donovan can see you at 2 o'clock. Jen leaned over from her cubicle. "Daniel, what's going on?" Marcus just walked past, looking like he wants to murder someone. "I found something in the Q4 report. Something bad." "How bad?" "Fraud bad." Jen's eyes went wide. "Oh no, Daniel, please tell me you didn't." "I already did. I'm meeting with Clara at 2. Marcus is going to destroy you. Maybe, but at least I'll be able to look my daughter in the eye." At 2 o'clock, Daniel sat in Clara's office while she read through his report. Her expression didn't change, but he saw her fingers tighten on the pages when she reached Section 7. "These overcharges," she said finally. "You're certain? I've triple-checked the numbers. The pattern is consistent across 15 different vendors over 18 months. Total losses are approximately $200,000. And Marcus approved every single one." "Yes." Clara set down the report and looked at him. Her eyes were sharp, calculating. "Do you know what you're doing, Daniel, accusing a department director of fraud?" "On your second week, I'm not accusing anyone, I'm presenting data. What it means is up to you." "It means Marcus Webb has been stealing from my company for over a year." Clara's voice was cold. It means I trusted someone who betrayed that trust for money. I'm sorry. Don't be. You did the right thing. Again. She stood up and walked to the window looking out over the city. Marcus has been with this company for 12 years. He has allies on the board, powerful friends. If we move against him without absolute proof, they'll protect him and come after us. What do you need? Clara turned back to him. Everything. Bank records, vendor statements, communication logs. I need evidence that will hold up in court. Can you get it? I'll try. Don't try. Do it. Because if Marcus realizes what we're doing, he'll destroy everything and disappear. Clara walked back to her desk. And Daniel, from now on you report directly to me. I'm pulling you out of Marcus's chain of command, effective immediately. Won't that tip him off? Let me worry about Marcus. You focus on building the case. I'll have our legal team work with you. Be thorough, be careful. And Daniel, she held his gaze. Thank you. Not everyone would have had the courage to bring this forward. Daniel left her office with a new title, a new supervisor, and a target on his back. Marcus would know by end of day that Daniel had gone over his head. He'd know his fraud had been exposed, and he'd be desperate. Desperate men were dangerous, but Daniel had faced dangerous before. He'd faced cancer and poverty and grief and somehow survived. He'd face this too. He had to, because Lily was counting on him, and this time he wouldn't let her down. The legal team consisted of two sharp-eyed attorneys, named Rachel and Tom, who set up in a conference room with boxes of documents and a whiteboard covered in timeline notes. Daniel spent the next 3 days buried in vendor files, bank statements, and email records, while Marcus prowled the 10th floor like a caged animal. Your new friend isn't happy, Jen whispered on Wednesday morning. He's been asking everyone where you are. What did you tell him? That you got reassigned. That's all I know. She glanced toward Marcus's office. Be careful, Daniel. He looks ready to explode. Daniel nodded and headed back to the conference room. Rachel had spread out 18 months of invoices across the table, color-coded by vendor. Look at this pattern, she said, pointing to a series of highlighted charges. Every inflated invoice goes through the same 3 vendors, Midwest Freight, Summit Logistics, and Branson Transport. But when I pulled their corporate filings, guess whose name shows up as a silent partner in all 3? Marcus Webb. His nephew, actually, Kyle Webb. 24 years old, no logistics experience, but somehow owns stake in 3 major shipping companies. Rachel tapped her pen against the table. Marcus was approving inflated invoices to companies his nephew owned. The money was cycling back to them. Tom pulled up bank records on his laptop. We traced the payments. Branson Transport received $200,000 in overcharges, then immediately transferred funds to a shell company in Delaware. That shell company made regular payments to accounts belonging to both Marcus and Kyle Webb. Daniel felt sick. It wasn't just fraud. It was systematic, calculated theft over more than a year. Is this enough to prosecute? More than enough, Rachel said. But we need to move carefully. Marcus has friends on the board. If he gets wind that we're building a case, he could destroy evidence or disappear. What do you need from me? Keep doing what you're doing. Document everything. And stay away from Marcus. The less he knows about your involvement, the better. But Marcus already knew. That became clear on Thursday afternoon when Daniel returned to his cubicle and found his computer login disabled. System error, the IT message said. Please contact your supervisor. Daniel called IT directly. The technician sounded confused. Your supervisor requested your access be suspended pending a performance review. I'm just following the ticket that came through. My supervisor is Clara Donovan. The ticket says Marcus Webb. Can you restore my access? Not without approval from Mr. Webb. Sorry, man, I'm just following protocol. Daniel hung up and walked straight to Clara's office. Her assistant tried to stop him, but he was already through the door. Daniel, what's wrong? Marcus locked me out of the system. He's claiming it's for a performance review. Clara's expression hardened. She picked up her phone and called IT. This is Clara Donovan. Restore full system access for Daniel Hayes immediately. Yes, I'm aware of the ticket. I'm overriding it. Do it now. She hung up and looked at Daniel. He's testing boundaries, seeing how far he can push before I push back. He knows we're investigating him. Of course he knows. But knowing and proving are different things. How close are we? Rachel and Tom think we have enough for prosecution. We just need to present it to the board. Not yet. Marcus has allies who'll try to bury this if we don't have an airtight case. I need something undeniable. Something he can't explain away. Clara stood up and walked to her window. There's a major shipment coming in tomorrow. $2 million worth of medical equipment for a hospital contract. It's routing through one of the suspect vendors, Summit Logistics. If Marcus is going to make a move, it'll be now. What kind of move? The kind that makes problems disappear, including evidence. Clara turned back to him. I want you monitoring that shipment personally. Every step, every checkpoint. If anything looks wrong, you call me immediately. Daniel spent Friday tracking the shipment on his computer while Lily did homework in the break room. The truck had left the distribution center at 6 a.m. scheduled to arrive at the warehouse by 2 p.m. Everything looked routine. GPS coordinates updated every 30 minutes showing steady progress along the interstate. Then at 1:15 the GPS signal went dark. Daniel refreshed the tracking page. Nothing. He checked the backup system. Still nothing. The truck had simply vanished somewhere near the Indiana border. He called the driver's cell phone, straight to voicemail. Rachel, the shipment's gone. Rachel looked up from her laptop. What do you mean gone? GPS signal dropped. Driver's not answering. $2 million of medical equipment just disappeared. Call Clara, now. Clara answered on the first ring. Daniel explained what happened and heard her sharp intake of breath. He's stealing it. Marcus is stealing the entire shipment to cover his tracks. If that equipment disappears, the investigation disappears with it. We lose everything. How do we find it? I don't know. Can you track it? Daniel thought fast. The truck has 2 GPS systems, one through the shipping company, one through our internal tracking. If Marcus disabled the shipping company's GPS, he might not know about our backup system. Can you access it? If I can get into the server directly, I'd need IT access beyond what I have. Go. I'll clear you with IT. Find that truck, Daniel. Daniel ran to the IT department on the 3rd floor. The head technician, a woman named Sarah, looked skeptical when he explained what he needed. Direct server access. That's against protocol. Clara Donovan authorized it. Call her if you don't believe me. Sarah made the call, listened for 30 seconds, and hung up, looking pale. All right, what do you need? Access to the backup GPS logs. Last known coordinates for trailer number 749. Sarah's fingers flew across her keyboard. Got it. Last ping was at 1:12 p.m. just off Interstate 80 near the Indiana border. Then nothing. Can you show me the route history for the past hour? She pulled up a map with the truck's path traced in blue. Daniel studied it, his mind racing. The truck had been following its normal route, then suddenly deviated onto a side road 15 minutes before the signal died. Can you get me the last coordinates before deviation? Sarah read them off. Daniel plugged them into his phone's map. The location was a rural area outside Gary, Indiana, mostly warehouses and industrial parks. I need security camera footage from our distribution centers, any facility within 50 miles of those coordinates. That's a lot of footage. Then we'd better start looking. They found it 2 hours later, a grainy security camera from a warehouse 30 miles from where the truck disappeared. The footage showed Daniel's missing truck pulling into a loading bay at 3:20 p.m. 2 men climbed out of the cab. One was the original driver, the other was younger, wearing a Summit Logistics uniform. Freeze that frame, Daniel said. Can you zoom in on the younger guy's face? Sarah enhanced the image. The man was in his 20s with the same sharp features Daniel had seen in photos of Marcus Webb's nephew. That's Kyle Webb, Daniel said. Marcus sent his nephew to hijack the shipment. What do? We go get it back. 20 minutes later, Daniel was in Clara's office with the security footage pulled up on her computer. That's definitely Kyle, Clara said. He works for Summit Logistics. Marcus must have called him when he realized we were investigating. The warehouse belongs to a company called Riverside Storage. Looks like it's been abandoned for years. Not abandoned, hidden. Clara picked up her phone. I'm calling the police. Wait. Daniel stopped her. If we bring police now, Marcus will claim he knew nothing about it. Kyle takes the fall, Marcus walks away clean. What are you suggesting? We go there, you, me, and security. We catch them with the shipment and get a confession on record. Then we call the police. Clara studied him. That's dangerous. So is letting Marcus get away with this. She made 3 calls. First to her head of security, a former Marine named Rodriguez. Second to Rachel and Tom, telling them to prepare legal documentation. Third to the board chairman, informing him that an emergency meeting would be necessary tonight. Then she looked at Daniel. Let's go. They took Clara's car, with Rodriguez following in a security van. The drive to Indiana took 90 minutes. Daniel spent most of it reviewing the security footage and building a timeline of events. The truck had arrived at 3:20. If they were transferring the cargo to another vehicle, they'd need at least 2 hours. That meant they might still be there. The warehouse sat at the end of a gravel road surrounded by empty lots and rusted chain-link fence. Clara parked a block away, and Rodriguez pulled up beside them. 2 entrances, Rodriguez said, studying the building through binoculars. Front loading bay and a side door. I see lights inside. Somebody's home. How do you want to play this? Clara asked. Simple. I walk in the front, you and Rodriguez cover the exits. If they run, you stop them. If they stay, we document everything. Daniel, these people are criminals. They could be armed. Then I'll be very polite. He climbed out before she could argue. His ribs still ached when he moved too fast, but adrenaline was drowning out the pain. He crossed the gravel lot and tried the loading bay door, unlocked. It rolled up with a screech of metal that echoed through the empty building. Inside, the warehouse was mostly dark except for work lights illuminating the far corner. Daniel's truck sat in the center, its trailer doors open. 2 men were loading boxes onto pallets. One was the driver from the security footage. The other was Kyle Webb. They both froze when they saw Daniel. Evening, Daniel said calmly. I'm looking for a shipment that got lost. $2 million worth of medical equipment. You guys seen it? Kyle dropped the box he was holding. Who the hell are you? Daniel Hayes. I work for Donovan Technologies, and that's our truck you're stealing. The driver bolted for the side door. Rodriguez appeared in front of him like a wall, arms crossed. I'd stay put if I were you, Rodriguez said. Kyle's face went white. This is a mistake. We were just moving the shipment to a secure location. Secure location. Daniel walked closer, his phone recording everything. This abandoned warehouse, strange choice. Why didn't you use our actual warehouse? Look, man, I can explain. Please do.